Hey, how y'all doing? This is Mongo Slade, and today we're going to talk about the Live Forever documentary. First, hit the like button. Also, hit subscribe for me. Thank you kindly. So I haven't been watching a lot of these WWE documentaries. I skipped quite a few of them. Occasionally, I will go back, but the Live Forever documentary kind of had a lot of attention, and it wasn't a lot of sympathetic attention the way the kind of the Lana documentary was, and the Undertaker stuff was just a lot of it. I was just said I'm gonna go through that a little at a time, but the Liv Morgan thing, I felt like since it was only about 40 minutes, I could sit and watch it, and I was actually very entertained, and it was very good. The documentaries, you should definitely go watch it. Even if you're not a fan of Liv Morgan, you should definitely go watch it. Uh, the reason why it was so good is because it is a masterclass in determination and in patience. Of course, there was a lot of maybe I think some type of unnecessary emotionalism, but when you're telling somebody's real story, they do typically get emotional in telling the story. For those of you who probably don't want to sit down and watch the documentary, I'll hit some of the major points. This documentary really kind of stretches from when the Riot Squad ended to when the Riot Squad was reformed. So it's looking at the entire career of Liv Morgan from when she first signed at 19 years old in 2014 to current 2020. But it is mostly about how Liv Morgan has been searching to find her own voice and find her own character and finding her own personality in the wrestling business and being somebody who is so young. And that's really kind of a real sticking point is that she was signed so young. She was signed 19. She had never worked anywhere else except Hooters. She was a Hooters waitress when they signed her. So you signed this young lady who was a Hooters waitress to a contract. She has no history of wrestling before. And so what do you do? Like she has no character for you to build off of. She is a blank slate. And this is what Paul Heyman said in the documentary, because he was the one who primarily came up with the whole idea of uh, Liv Morgan being Lana's lesbian female lover. It's like she basically is a blank slate. So what do you do with this blank slate? And that's basically what the story of this documentary is about, is WWE trying all these different things with Liv Morgan and her character being wildly undefined. And for a long time, because it was so undefined, they had nothing for her to do, you know? So she kept trying to find different things to do. So to hit the story, Liv Morgan, her father died before she was born. I think her father died like 4 months before she was born. She was born premature. She was born at 28 weeks. She's one of 7 children. Her mom was a single mother. She has older brothers, and I think she said an older sister and maybe a younger sister as well. She was a cheerleader in high school. She dropped out of high school in 2010, and then she went and got a GED, and then she became a Hooters waitress. And she said she was working out with somebody whose name I forgot, but she was it's the guy she used to work out with knew Triple H, and that got her to the Performance Center to do a tryout when she nailed the tryouts in 2014 and was signed at 19 years old. So then she talked about how much she loved the PC. She loved being in the Performance Center, and that how the training was so hard because she had no background in it, but the soreness and everything was kind of worth it because she was willing to do it. And she talked about something that's called the mirror room that I'd never heard before, and talked about the Performance Center. Everybody talks about promo class, which we've seen the promo class stuff before. I had never seen the mirror room stuff before. Now, what the mirror room is, from what it sounds like, is that they put the people in the room, the student in the room, and they cut promos in the mirror, and they and they record the promo. So it's basically they keep track of how many of these things you've done. So it's not like you have to you have a structured type of thing. It would seem like you just do these things, and you do like they keep track of how many times you've done this, how many times you've done that. And she was talking about like, okay, the mirror room is where they would go in there and she would cut these promos. She would talk to herself in the mirror, but you would be cutting wrestling promos. And the purpose of this is to study your own body language, how your lips move, how your body moves, and you of course go. They record them so you can go back and watch them, obviously. But she talked about how she used to hang out with Aaliyah who is still in NXT, by the way. Aaliyah is still in NXT. So, but her and Aaliyah used to do the mirror room things together, and it's a cool idea. You know, now that I think about it, like it's one of those very creative things that I didn't know that people have always sort of talked about. There's always been a thing where wrestlers have been trying to find ways to better their own promos. There was stories of guys with tape recorders. Sean Stasiak was one of these guys. He talked about how he used to cut promos into a tape recorder. This is how he ended up getting fired. Sean Stasiak he claimed he was cutting promos into a tape recorder, and then people thought he was recording them, and then he said, "Oh yeah, I was recording you, but it was a rib. It got nothing to do with that." But tape recorders is one thing. Cutting promos in the mirror is another thing. And it sounds like a great exercise, if we're being honest. It sounds pretty dope. So Liv Morgan was essentially just a regular on NXT in 2015. She wrestled solo matches and stuff like that, but she wasn't really clicking. And then she was brought up as a member of the Riot Squad in 2017. Riot Squad, Mandy Rose, and Sonya Deville were all brought up at the same time. Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville was sent to Raw to hang out with Paige, and the Riot Squad were sent to SmackDown. And then they basically talked about, they did their thing for a couple of years, and then the Riot Squad was broken up in 2019 when Liv Morgan was drafted to, I believe it was Raw. No, she was drafted to SmackDown. And they talked about how they felt like there was no payoff. Because there was no breakup, so there was no closure. It was just random. Like Liv was just randomly snatched from the group and then thrown on SmackDown, where she did nothing for 13 weeks. And this was like a thing I completely forgot about. Like I knew she disappeared for a long time, before the creation of the new Liv Morgan, but I forgot that she was actually drafted to SmackDown and then disappeared for a long time. But she was gone for over 3 months before she made her return to wrestle Charlotte in July of 2019. And she had the solo match with Charlotte, which she lost, of course, because she wrestled Charlotte. And then also, we find out at this point that she was actually in NXT when Charlotte was there. So Liv Morgan was somebody who has been on the roster a long time. So that's another reason why this documentary was actually pretty good. As you see how long tenured she is. Like she was signed at 19. She's 26 now. That means she's been under contract in some form or fashion for 7 years. That is insane. It's an insane amount of time these guys spend in NXT. It is entirely too long, if we're being honest. You would think 2 or 3 years max, get them out of here. But no, she didn't debut. She was already under contract for 3 years before she debuted, which is crazy. That's absolutely insane. So she says like while she was off, after she lost to Charlotte, she claimed back. She said she was going to be real. And then while she was off all this time, she had started pitching dark characters. And Liv Morgan still kind of does like witchcraft, astronomy based stuff on Twitter. And that's kind of the character she wanted. That's what she wanted to go with, the characters to be darker. So she did a promo where she was out in the rain crying, and that was really weird. I wanted to know why they didn't go with that, but maybe it's just a thing where they just didn't know what they wanted to do. And then they say they wanted a more stripped down Liv Morgan. That was the only thing she was told. So for all the WWE's micromanaging, Liv Morgan was not micromanaged, because it seems like she was mostly ignored. Like they mostly didn't care what she did, but she went on her own, and all they did is they told her they didn't want as much makeup and to strip down her look as much as possible. And then she went back blonde on her own, and she had a more natural look. And apparently they had been working on this for a while, and then she was going to be re-debut against Ember Moon in a match that was going to be on a dark match in September of 2019. And then 30 seconds before that match happened, the match was canceled by Michael Hayes. And it was the craziest thing, because I was like, wow. Now she was told that the match was canceled because Vince McMahon did not want to debut a fully formed Liv Morgan in front of any crowds until it was complete, until there was an appropriate time. So they wanted to wait. And then, of course, in October 2019, she was drafted back to Raw because Paul Heyman wanted her for Raw. And Paul Heyman's vision of Liv Morgan is actually very good. It is very awesome because he talked about young people, and he basically just says like Liv Morgan is sort of the prototype of a typical young person who they are rebellious, and they tend to be lost at life and not know what they want or what they want to do. And that's kind of what he saw when he saw Liv Morgan. Is he saw that this spirit, that sort of the free spirit who wants to be undefined, who doesn't really want labels and things like that pressed upon her, which is why he came up with the idea of her being Lana's lesbian lover, because he figures if you're going to have this character be undefined, then the sexuality has to go along with that. So you're never actually told that Liv Morgan is a lesbian. But you also never was told that she was straight either. But they just added that element to the character. Now, it was never mentioned, because I'm gonna be honest with it. A lot of people was negative on the whole Liv Morgan being a lesbian thing, because there were people who were saying it was done for shock value. I wish I could go back and find the tweets from that era. I'm not going to put that much effort into this, but I do know that people. I'm sure there was a lot of wrestling journalists that were saying, and I could think of one off the top of my head that said it, but there was a lot of people who were saying like it was a shock thing. It wasn't done because it was being legitimate. There was other people who were saying that this was just an idea they stole from Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville, because Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville was pitching a lesbian angle. There was also people saying that, well, they shouldn't be doing this because neither Liv Morgan nor Lana are lesbians, and this is a story better fitting for Sonya Deville because Sonya Deville is a lesbian, even though Sonya Deville actually came up with something much better, a lot later. So the character, was kind of slowly but surely, after a couple of matches with Lana, and doing some things here and there, it was kind of quietly dropped. It was very, very quietly dropped. But in doing this, this whole undefined Liv Morgan, she said, like, basically she lost focus. She kind of lost confidence. She didn't know what she was doing. She didn't know who she was anymore, which is really strange because she seemed to be confident before. And then when they started saying, okay, your character is going to be undefined, we're not going to, go into whatever that means to be not defined. And it's like, as a performer, you would be thrown for a loop by that. Like, what does that mean? What does it mean to be undefined? So it didn't really work out, and they kind of quietly, took that, kind of tampered that out. But she did get her WrestleMania match. She got the pre-show match against Natalya at WrestleMania, which she won, which is pretty cool. And then they reunited the Riot Squad in the later part of 2020 with her and Ruby. And I really like the Riot Squad stuff. Like, I was always a fan of the Riot Squad. I was just always pushing for them. I don't know why. It just have a thing. It's like one of those things where you just kind of, you are a fan of somebody or something, but you're not entirely sure why. That's kind of what I am about the Riot Squad. Like, I want to see them succeed, but I'm not sure why. Like, I'm not a big fan of anybody in the group, but I do kind of want to see them succeed. And Ruby Riot is really, really dope. Like, she was talking about how, the Riot Squad is, forever, and, that their goal is to be Hall of Famers, all three of them, including Sarah, who doesn't work there anymore. Like that's how strongly that they have it in their minds that they're going to make this thing work. Is that, they're going to not only, finally get where they feel like they should be, which is the tag team championship, but they finally feel like they're going to get Sarah her job back. And it's like, it's all implied. Like, none of this stuff was said. It was just basically all implied. Like, we're all going to be Hall of Famers, which means that you have to get Sarah's job back. But, but they haven't lost that focus, and basically the documentary is a story of Liv Morgan, being this child who was sort of like a feral child who was raised by a single mom and nobody making sure that whether she was done with her homework or anything like that, to being in the performance center where again nobody's watching to make sure she's doing everything that she's supposed to be doing. She's expected to do it on her own, which is something I really loved about the documentary. But yeah, but what I really loved about the documentary was what Liv Morgan had to say about working at Hooters. And she talked about how Hooters had all these opportunities. For instance, she, as a Hooters girl, she got to do these calendars, which means she got to take professional pictures. And of course, that was able to, she was able to shop those around in order to get jobs and stuff like that. But she also said that she learned responsibility. And I think that that's something that is very, very important. And she said, like, hey, if it was just something as learning that to keep your wings hot, it was responsibility that I had to learn. And then you realize, like, that's really sort of the moral of the story, is that Liv Morgan was responsible for herself mostly as a child. Because she didn't have, the parents. She's talking about, breaking the cycle of everybody in her family being angry and being negative. She took that as a responsibility. She took it as her responsibility to come up with new ideas for her character. The Liv Morgan, as we've seen her before the Riot Squad, the reforming of the Riot Squad was her own idea. She went and changed her own look. She came up with everything. It's all about taking responsibility, and that's what she has been doing. And I find that to be incredibly powerful. It's a hell of a message. So I love this documentary. I think it was pretty cool. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Like this video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll talk to you guys later.